and full course yellow is deployed. Full course yellow is deployed.
Yes, hello everybody, and yes, we do start with the sad news, the unfortunate passing of pro motocross rider Joel Evans in South Australia on the weekend. Found out about this only today actually, and very very sad news. Passed away in an accident out at the most recent round in South Australia, single bike accident. Yeah, so very sad situation there, and unfortunately these things happen in the world of motorsport. So our condolences, of course, go out to all of Joel's friends, family, and of course the very close knit local motocross scene. Well, anyway, we move on. Unfortunately, it's part of the it's part of our situation with motorsport that these things do occasionally happen. So as I said, yeah, very sad start to the day. But we shall talk about all things motorsport. And joining me to talk about such things, we've got Peter Johnson, we've got Richard Outram, Craig Doc Latigo is with us as well, and from Queensland, Mark Jones. Good evening, guys. How are we?
Evening, Brett. Evening, gents. How are we all?
Good, thanks, Brett.
Before we start, I don't know whether anybody else has had. Before we started, I said that Pete's sound was very bad. I'm getting very bad sound from everybody at the moment. What's the sound like?
Good here.
It's. I think you're in isolation there. The rest of us are all good, and everyone else sounds good to each other.
Doc, you sound great.
Oh, yep. What are you doing Friday night, honey?
Have you blown up your speakers, Brett?
Oh yeah, he must have. He's probably put a decent tear on the old paper ones. Well, that's all right. We'll move on from that as well, though.
I've got new cable, a new cable here, and it's not plugging in correctly. So that's the main thing. Anyway, I thought it might have been something that EV Musk was getting. Let's talk about unfortunately, as I said, the tragedy on the weekend in South Australia, but let's talk about all things two wheels at the moment, because that was probably the biggest event. And Doc, Marquez won again, but it was
huge
not
news.
Marquez
won.
Yeah, not the usual Marquez.
No. Marquez won, and he won his first Grand Prix. Congratulations! And everyone's like, no, he's won a lot of them. He's even won championships. No, Marquez won. So Alex, congratulations! Huge, very good. He just positioned himself really well at the start. Watched all the carry-ons. There was a bit into team rivalry between Bagnaia and his brother, Mark. I think just on the one lap earlier on the piece, near the start, they even rubbed shoulders. And yeah, it was great to see. There was obviously no team orders. It was all fair and square and above board. And it ended up a bit of a disappointment. Marc Marquez washed out the front going around the corner. You could probably say it was probably the dirty surface, because Jack Miller did the same in practice. I was watching a bit of the practice 1 and practice 2, leading up into the sprint race. And Jack washed out there too. And no, he wasn't. They weren't Robinson Crusoe there. They weren't alone. So congratulations. You wouldn't believe it, as much as he's been racing in a few years and been in his brother's shadow. I don't know, but I haven't seen this on YouTube or any of the mainstream media, but he's an outside chance if things don't go Marc Marquez's way for the rest of the year. Remember, he's on basically almost the same bike as the Ducati factory team, because the Ducati, as I explained earlier on in the year, on full course yellow, which not many people did. I don't know why, but I was watching a lot of testing over a few days, and Ducati decided to go with last year's bike, which they'd given to everybody else anyway, with only 2 exceptions. I think it was the ECU, some electronics and suspension upgrades. So fantastic. It gives all the Ducati riders at least a close enough even chance on riding ability, even though Mark seems to be a cut above the rest. in some circumstances. But yeah, well done. And also to Fab Quartararo ended up second. He showed promise going into the sprint race, but crashed out early in that, but seemed to be able to keep it all together in the main game on Sunday. And I don't want to ramble on this too long. I hate talking about negative stuff. We always try and focus on the positive and the opportunities, but I think old Jack Miller's in the wilderness at the moment. He's got back to almost rookie days where you've got to stay on the bike and finish the bike. And well, they always say, if you can't win unless you finish the race. For starters, he's just crashing too much, trying too many things. Just the consistency's not there. And I know it takes a little bit of time to learn the new machine and get onto the new factory, into the new team and that sort of stuff. But he's a well-versed, experienced MotoGP rider, ridden a lot of machines, and Jack, we all wish him the best, but geez, I don't care. He was in the top 10 there before he washed out himself and crashed. So, Jack, just keep it together and get some top 10 results.
It's got a scent of the Ricardos about it. I mean, in terms, there's always it was looking good, and I was confident on the bike, and I was, we were heading in the right direction, and then suddenly I fell off. I think that as you say, there's so much talent coming through the Moto 2 ranks at the moment, and even Moto 3, that it'll be very hard. It's not as if there's a shortage of talented young riders out there, and it'd be a shame, because he's a very popular character, and no doubt he would find himself, in a World Superbike, or certainly something local if he wanted to. But I imagine he'd find himself in World Superbikes pretty quickly if he wanted a spot there. But at the same time, as you say, he really needs to. He really needs to have a few good results here and there, or otherwise
just finish the race for starters, Brett. Yeah. Just finish the damn thing, even if you're 12th or 7th or whatever it may be. You've got to, you've got no data at the moment on a long stint all the way to the end. So, he complains about tyre deg, and they're always complaining about tyre deg and what combination they want to run, soft, medium, hard on front and back and that sort of stuff. But yeah, he needs to get some results.
Well, yeah, so it was interesting. Certainly in testing, Marc Marquez has jumped back on the way. He's been the fastest in testing at Jerez yesterday. So I don't know whether they're testing again right now, but they were certainly testing last night, and Marc was back in action. Was back in action again, and dominated on an updated Ducati. So they look like it looks like it's going to be a straight fight between the brothers at this stage, and you'd have to think that Marc is still the red hot favourite. But it did show that, if by some chance he he makes a few mistakes, and his brother's there to sort of take over the reins. So could be an interesting Christmas dinner at the Marquez family later on in the year.
Watching some of the highlights, Brett. Speaking of Christmas dinner, it was really good. It was just obviously timing, but it was good to see Dad was in the Alex camp with a neutral polo shirt on, which was great to see. It wasn't blue and it wasn't red. So, but I'm sure Dad supports both sons equally and always has. But yeah, it was just good timing that he happened to be in Alex's camp, and a few of the shots that panned over to him was there. So it's great, because he's always been in the shadow, and I'm not saying he would have been lauded any more or less than his brother if he had been racing when Marc didn't exist. But it's he's worked hard for what he's got. I don't know. Everyone can argue that no one's Marc Marquez, no one was Valentino Rossi, no one was Alberto Puig when he used to race. All the greats of all on the bikes. Doesn't matter what, even a Doohan or a Gardner, but anyone who's won a Wayne Rainey, all the champions that have won over the years. Nicky even jumped in for one there before we lost the great man a long time ago. So it's a case of, I think he deserves it on the right machine, obviously, and it'd be a shame. And there's a few of them that have missed out over the years that probably could have won a world championship, because there was just one person just completely dominating.
Well, yeah, that's the MotoGP thing. I didn't watch it. I saw the sprint race. I saw and I watched a bit of qualifying. But once again, there's so much stuff on over the weekend. I actually ended up watching the French Historic Grand Prix, which was amazing. The fields
Right. Well, did you link it
holy,
for us?
holy cow!
Was there someone that we might know who was running around in a Jaguar?
Who was that?
Oh, Zach Brown of McLaren
Oh,
fame was
yes,
racing
yes.
an
Well,
XJR.
yeah. Well, Zach's always racing something. If he's not racing the Jaguar, he's racing the ex Garth Tander Commodore, or he's racing the ex Alan Moffat Monza, or he's racing an RS 3100 Capri, or or an old McLaren, or you name it. I mean, his collection. He's even got the ex Alan Jones and ex Alan Jones Lola T332 Formula 5000. He's got a lot of Australian cars,
Teddy Yip
actually.
car?
What's that? Yeah,
The Teddy Yip car?
Yeah, the Teddy Yip car.
Ah.
Yeah, so he's got that as well. He's got quite a lot of Australian connected cars with the Moffat car. Unfortunately for the Moffat car, for the Monza, he's restored it to the paint job or similar paint job to the one that it ran at Sandown on July the 4th when he'd had the Happy Birthday USA logo on it, but it's not. There's a few mistakes on it, and also particularly the front spoiler is very different to the spoiler that ran here in Australia. Not sure what the reason for that is, but it's a very different looking front, and the livery isn't perfect. It's like it looks like what it is. It looks like a tribute car. It's like I remember it looking a bit like this, but it's not. It's not exactly the way it ran. The way it ran there in that amazing race with Pete Gagan in the Monaro that time, which you can see on YouTube. It's all over YouTube. The ABC's coverage of that particular race is available on YouTube, and you should check it out because it was a fantastic sports sedan race and a great fight between Moff and Gagan. Hey, let's say hello to everybody who's joining us today. Paul Van Der Acker is joining us once again. Box is with us. Jimmy K is with us. Jimmy K63. Very, very good to catch up with you again. Jared is with us as well, telling us that New Zealand Speedway had a bad crash as well, so that's unfortunate. And we might get on to this SB pointing out this week coming up at Sydney Motorsport Park. We've got the latest round of the Australian GT Series or GT World Challenge Australia, and only 15 cars entered for the event. Once again, some good drivers. Tom Randall is making his series debut. He's running this weekend up there, so there's no shortage of good drivers. Once again, another really good field of GT4 cars, but the GT3 cars are really struggling, and as SB is saying here, the GT3 situation seems very similar to the old Thunderdome. The fields slowly diminished, and the Oscar fields were always strong, just like GT4. And yeah, it all comes down to dollars. The GT4 cars, for whatever reason, just seem to be way more affordable and way more popular with people at the moment. And GT3 is suffering. So we sort of touched on that last week in terms of what they do with the Bathurst 1000, the Bathurst 12 Hour, because they're really struggling to get a really good field of cars up at the moment in GT3. They had a reasonable turnout for the first round, but this is pretty disappointing. Only 15 cars that they've dragged together for the meeting. So I mean, what is the future?
I mean, 15's about average, I think, for compared to 2024 entries at non-marquee events. So I don't know that it's I don't know that the field is especially any better or worse than it was last year. And we've got the usual all the usual suspects are in the entry, so it should be good racing. And Well, there's some really quality cars and teams in the series. It's just that there's not a lot of midfield. Like the midfield is a little bit missing, shall we say?
Yeah, and I think the thing, as Jared is saying as well, for next year is, we should get.
Uh,
I'm pretty sure we will have a GT3 Mustang. In fact, probably a
mm,
couple of them. I believe that Ford were very, very keen to have a car here for the series this year, and certainly keen to get one into the Bathurst 12 Hour. They were very keen. They were very keen to get it here, and I imagine that somebody will try and pick up a Corvette. The problem with the Corvette is they're just not producing them in the numbers that they need.
yeah,
The
it
back
seems.
order is really, it's like, put your order in, but hurry up and wait.
Yeah, and there's not a great deal of history of GT3 Corvettes in Australia. I think there has been just the one of them in seasons past, and that was run briefly. I think it might have been the Trofeo squad, Jim Manolis' race
Yeah,
team,
Jim
who raced
Anolius
a
is with
yeah raced a
Capelli and
yeah a C7 spec car, and that was quite a few years ago now. Um, but and Lexus, I think, is perhaps a little bit even further distant. I'm not because they don't really. I mean, what was the last time you ever? Maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, but Lexus don't really do anything motorsport in Australia.
No, they don't do it. They don't do it here. Obviously, they're running in both the World Endurance Championship and the IMSA North American Sports Car Championship, and
Yeah,
they've got the new car coming out. That sort of, it looks like they just sort of, had a look at the AMG and went, we like that. Let's build one of those. It looks
yeah.
very similar to the Mercedes from what I've seen of it, but that won't be homologated in time for Bathurst next year, and I doubt we'd see one of them in Australia
No,
next
I
year as
think there's
well.
too
But
much. Yeah, I think there's too much coin in Toyota and Toyota's own brand in motorsport in Australia. Like Toyota is going so fantastically well with their Australian motorsport program that I'm not sure that they necessarily want to dilute it with something from one of their allied brands.
I'm glad you rephrased that, Jonesy, because when you say there's too much coin, I don't think you can say there should be too much coin in motorsport in Toyota. I think it's great input. It's fantastic input they want, but I think you corrected yourself by saying that that there's no need to go into the Lexus side of things, especially when they're going to go with supercars and the Supra, which is that borderline absolute greatest hit of all time Toyota like entry. But I think everyone should be wrapped. It wasn't, it wasn't rebadged as a Lexus, or it wasn't violated by changing it. So yeah, I mean, if they're going to go Lexus, what sort of like market are they going to be targeting, and what sort of entry level car would they go into? What category? I mean, sports sedans, they probably would say, well, yeah, that's highly modified. We don't want to play with that sort of thing. Or I mean, is it DTM over the British Touring Car Championship over in Pommyland, or
Oh,
where would you go?
well, speaking of the British Touring Car Championship, as I said, I watched some of it because for the first time in many years, it was available for freely and openly on YouTube. The British Touring Car Championship ran the entire meeting for the weekend, for the Sunday at least, on their YouTube channel, and it was great racing. And the interesting thing is, I mean, because they're different. Everyone sort of thinks that they're the TCR car. They're not. They're a different thing altogether. They're sort of a similar philosophy, but they're a little bit faster and a little bit more modified, and they've got a whole bunch of manufacturers that you don't see in TCR, including BMW, Toyota, Ford. The Hyundai won. Tom Cornell won in the main race, or the final race, in a Hyundai. But apart from that, you
Ingram,
had
not
MGs,
Ingram.
you had all sorts of things floating around and racing, and the racing was fantastic. It was really, really
Mm.
good.
Oh, just a little side note there. You're talking about different spec cars running in unlikely different categories and things around the world. We did the car show a couple of weeks ago. Brett hasn't. Brett did a little special that with Fit in Pit Lane, and you can jump on YouTube and see some fantastic interviews Brett did, and Jason and I got behind the camera and checked things out and got a little bit of gory inside stuff myself by asking the right questions at the right time for people too off camera that they don't necessarily see. But come through a little feed of mine today, and I want to go on bang on about where I found out about. Did everyone see GWM plotting a V8 Ram 1500 rival here in Australia? So they're going to bring out a GWM four-wheel drive, but it's going to be a V8, straight V8. Now, this is not hybrid. It's not a V6 turbocharged twins, anything like that. They're going to go the big guns and try and take on Ford and of course the Chrysler brand. So that's
GWM, as in Great Wall Motors.
Great Wall Motors is going all out with a huge, massive four-wheel drive and a V8 engine straight.
They're running a whole bunch of things. I think it's one of the YouTube channels. I don't think it was Carstar. I forget who it was now. It's somebody. They've just had the Shanghai Motor Show, which is one of the few motor shows in the world that is sort of a yearly event and is a big event. And it's a huge event because they were pointing out just how big it was, but they also pointed out that, a bit like the Melbourne Motor Show revival that we went to, that had like a few cars and quite a few brands that we'd never heard of. This was absolutely chock-a-block full of cars and brands that you've never heard of in your life, but are selling are very popular in China. And some of the cars looked really good, and a lot of them were sort of, they were saying that, well, we would like to come to Australia. We're just sort of, setting out what the market might be, and a few of those were sort of saying that they were looking at in terms of pushing the brand, that they were realising the importance of things like high performance and motorsport in terms of getting that sort of that glow that you get out of motorsport, which they hadn't before because they don't really have the culture of it over there. I remember when we were over there for the Chinese Touring Car Championship many years ago, the local manufacturers, their local media was saying it's just not a thing that sort of hits the brain of sort of local people in terms of like, what, you race cars? Why would you do that? It just they just thought it was a really weird thing, and then suddenly, slowly but surely, they started to watch Formula One. And they're going, oh, this is actually quite exciting, and gee, some of these cars are really cool. And
I'm going to play.
We don't make cars like that.
I might play a pop quiz with everyone. Brett, you get a wild card, so you're excluded first of all. So you three gentlemen, and of course Knackers and Box and Krabby and all that sort of stuff. Does anyone want to take a stab at the car that's sitting in the background behind my ugly mug here?
No.
No?
Well, it says Ford in very big letters everywhere.
Oh, well, I mean, there's a big giveaway. Other than stating the obvious, do you know what it is?
It looks like a Mustang, but it obviously isn't.
Correct. You might be onto something there.
Yeah, this isn't a new Fusion / Taurus? Not yes, Taurus.
No, spot on. No, don't doubt yourself. I was hoping Brett would have his finger on the pulse there and be able to bring up one of our viewers or listeners to see if they hit the button before you did. But that's a rendering from a Facebook group that I happened to come across. But I did catch up with some of the news that's on it. The 2026 release, they reckon that rendering could be as far as 2027 away. This is the huge launch that this has got. It's got it looks like Ford will run with next year. That's an SHO 5.4 litre supercharged V8 with 585 horsepower. Now put that in your British Touring Car Championship, because they were traditionally known as a mid-size car, but they're going to be a little up spec. And I'm
I
telling you
think
what, I reckon they look
Well, yeah,
fantastic.
well,
it looks
shared a
great.
platform with the Mondeo for a little bit.
Unfortunately, you've got to take these with a grain of salt. There are lots of renders out there at the moment from so-called
No. Ford are
cars
doing it, but this render is their impression on what Ford are going to make. But Ford will do something with it like this, but that's just their guesstimation at the moment. So Ford are going to run that engine. They're going to run that spec. They're going to run all this jazz, but that's just their guess on what Ford's going to do with their SHO stuff. So it will happen, but it's going to look fantastic. Ford's not playing around with this. They're having a crack at it. To put something slightly smaller than obviously than a pony with a super with 500 and something horsepower, I think there'll be a few people around the world saying, "Geez, that's going to be fun up against the in my local club car down there at Sandown."
Imagine the publicity benefits for Ford if they ran that body shape in NASCAR, replacing the Ford Mustang, while Chevrolet is running a no-name banner waving vehicle.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be the problem. I mean, because Chev are showing no intentions at all of replacing the Camaro with something in NASCAR, and I think that's going to become increasingly a problem. I think people are probably putting up with it at the moment because it's modern enough that they go, oh well, it's they're still out there, and there's probably still some. If you want one, there's probably still some in stock on the on the occasional showroom floor in the USA, but. Eventually, it's going to turn around, and you won't be able to buy one. But then the problem's going to be the same with the Supra as well. I mean, we're going to get the Supra like debuting next year in supercars, which at the same time they're going to knock the thing on the head. So.
I think that's less of an issue because it appears as though that Toyota, for want of a better term, alternating the Supra with the Celica. And we may see a return of the Supra when the about to be launched Celica body shape runs its course.
Yeah, well, hopefully they keep it up to date because you don't want it to become like if you're going to run out of date cars, you might as well stick Falcon and Commodore bodies back on the bloody things again.
Because Celica's got history in Australian touring car racing.
Well, yeah, I mean, going back into the days of Peter Williamson and even earlier, like the improved production days with Brian Sampson, with that little weapon that he had, the LT Celica. That was a lovely car, but I find it's hard to get excited about any. I must admit, I had a look at the opening round of the Brazilian, the South American touring car series, which are running SUV bodies, and they look fantastic, but they had all sorts of problems. It was basically like a crate engine and a control chassis and control everything with a body dropped over the top of it. And they actually had to cancel a couple of races because they just didn't have enough cars finished and running in time to make a round of it. They were ready to go. And it was like
Brazil, Brett, would be that have a bit of one of the problems would be the air conditioning wouldn't work or something, or
yeah, probably that. But they look fantastic. If you get an opportunity to have a look at them, they look sensational. I think really, really surprising when you have a look at at what they've done with them and the way they've styled them. They look fantastic. I reckon they'd be a really popular thing if you did run them over here as sort of in touring cars.
Take over the monster truck spot. They do an alternate one round monster trucks, the other one Brazilian SUVs.
Yeah, so
I'm not so sure that they could get past the. I mean, we've already got that series in Australia in Super V8, Super Utes.
Yeah, these don't look anything like Super Utes, though.
No, I know that, but they occupied the same spot in the.
Well, I suppose
you couldn't have both. I couldn't see successfully running both championships.
Yeah, I think you could.
Alternate gives them a chance to fix the sunroofs.
Well, that's still two championships.
they're two totally different different sort of body styles. I mean, and especially with the way these things look, they look amazing. So yeah, check it out if you can online. I won't sort of tempt fate by going and bringing up photos now, but if you have a look for Brazilian, I think it's just Brazilian Touring Car Championship.
Oh, you're banging on about. We're going to have a look, aren't we, for ourselves here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're a really attractive looking car. Anyway, any Formula One news out? Everything's gone very quiet on Formula One news at the moment.
Miami this weekend.
Oh, it's this weekend, is it?
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Miami.
It's going to be lots of Canadians coming down to watch it, are they?
Yes.
Plenty of Canadians.
Well, they'll be fleeing their own federal election, won't they? So.
Up
there,
that's all done and dusted now. Boy, did
that's
that turn
finished.
around!
Yeah.
Did that turn around quickly?
Gee, well, that was a Storm Cup ruin. I mean, when he's obviously had his comments over here. I don't want to get on the politics, but geez, did you see the backlash from just every single Canadian on this planet about we are not becoming a state. I saw Mike Myers. I didn't recognise him at first. Mike Myers jumped on TV, as white as a hair as anyone could possibly be. It's like it was dyed peroxide. And he had his elbows up with bloody hockey style. So there's a bit of sport side angle to it. And saying, yeah, get your hands off. Don't even think about making us a state of America. And look, I totally agree with him, but he's just an absolute twat, that guy that runs the show over there in the red, white.
The funny thing is, it's now hit the it's now hit the NASCAR scene as well. All them good old boys who got out there and voted for him, they're very upset at the moment because the die-cast collectibles of this season's cars have apparently been the company involved has stopped bringing in the new ones or releasing any new models for this year. Because they're worried that they just can't sell them because they've had to put their prices up by.
You just see what Canada's all the shops have done in Canada, all the supermarket or all the outlets. They have taken all the American alcohol off the shelf everywhere, completely wiped it. Either put it in storage or they've just sent it back to the distributor or got claimed it or whatever, or destroyed it or drunk it on their own time. But I cannot believe it's just a massive boycott in Canada at the moment for you know who.
Yeah,
Canadian club's got to be loving that.
Well, the other thing is that we're in terms in Formula One. Carl Haas is saying that he's looking at the future of his team because he's concerned about the way things are going because obviously so much of the cars are produced overseas and so much of his business relies on equipment and parts that are based and built overseas. He's sort of saying we're just holding off on a few things we'd planned. We're just holding off on it now to see.
What are you worried about? Tesla's not busy at the moment. They can make a few car parts for him.
Yeah. So
well, that's what I've been saying for some while now, and it could affect the whole landscape. It could make America persona non grata when it comes to involvement in overseas motorsport.
Yeah, well, it might be interesting to see whether they've put, because they wanted more. They've always wanted more and more Grand Prix in America, and they've got what is it, 3 now?
Yeah.
COTA
and Miami and Las Vegas.
And Las Vegas. So it'll be interesting to see whether that because obviously COTA was famous for getting huge numbers of people from Mexico. More than I think it was more than 60% of the crowd was apparently from Mexico. Well, whether they're still going to come across in huge numbers.
Well, Sergio Perez, of course, no longer part of the championship, so that cuts out a fair bit of the motivation.
The local media in Mexico is saying that they believe very firmly he will have a drive next year. They've said that they believe they've been told by a lot of people that there is absolutely, quote, no doubt that There is no doubt that Sergio will be back in Formula One next
Not
year.
biased at all.
Signed, sealed, and delivered. The Mexican telecommunications billionaire has paid the money, and he will be. He has virtually guaranteed that Sergio will be in a car next year. So
let's see
Well,
if
if you-
the talk.
Plausible.
Well,
that
if
could
your
solve
pockets
Carl
are deep
Haas's
enough, you
problem.
can make anything happen.
Pete,
Sorry.
Plausible. It's plausible. He could go to Cadillac.
yeah, well, that's going to be interesting because the situation is, as Jared's saying, apparently, like the Cadillac engine, the GM engine, which have just got approval to run, has been delayed till 2029 now. So they'll be running the Ferrari engine for the first few years, which is probably not a bad thing because it's a proven, it's a proven package, and they'll be able to sort out the chassis and the drivers and all the rest of
Let
it
the
before they
Ferrari
have
do
their
the
own
development for him. Yeah.
before they put their own engine in. So yeah. Good day to Luigi, who's calling from up beautiful Cairns. I imagine that it's very nice very
Jealous.
pleasant up there at the moment.
Early 30s every day, 20 at night. Bliss.
Yeah, to be
No stingers in the water.
yeah,
No fire ants anywhere. Yeah.
Yes.
It's so lovely.
You're in the wrong part of Cairns if you're doing that. I'm
Paradise.
down at the beach eating the fresh seafood that comes off the wharf. I don't know. You're in the wrong spot, I think, Richard.
But anyway, what else have we got to do? What else have we got to chat about motor racing? Oh, we'll let you know.
Talladega?
Oh yeah, Talladega. That was a really good race. Austin Cindric won by a very narrow margin, but the car that finished second and one of the other Fords have both been disqualified for some technical infringements revolving around their spoilers. So they got monstered, and so Ryan Priest was finished second, has lost that second place now. And the teams have put their hand up and said, "No, that was our bad. We did the wrong thing." So
I'm in full election mode here. I am a one day wonder kid for on Saturday, which I've been doing for over 30 years. So I've been a bit of a homebody at the moment, and I've got to do a lot of homework on that. So you asked what else was on. I did have it running for couple of hours at least minimum. I was watching some of the IndyCar testing. So they do theirs is a slightly different system to other things in the whole wide world, like IndyCar do and America has and that sort of stuff. But they do testing like on the weekend, and then they do it again in 2 weeks, and blah blah blah. It all boils up to the Indy 500. I tried to stay away from the social media stuff that came out of it, etc. like that. But I was extremely interested just to see how the number 3 car went, how the number 9 car went, and the number 12 car went. And the reason why is because they're all directly related to what we all celebrated last Friday, which was Anzac Day. So Dixon, Power, and McLaughlin, the 3 boys. And the other thing was as well too, they were quite good. They were probably thereabouts in the top 10 throughout the things. And what they do is they'll go out there, stick some new sticky black stuff on to stick to the other black stuff that's underneath them, and they'll go out there and they'll go through a process that the team wants them to do, a bit like Formula One, where they sort of installation lap and then take it up to this pace and take it up to that pace and see what this does and see how that affects the car and that sort of stuff. For example, McLaughlin did a couple of laps and then they thought, oh, look, he's going to hit some testing records. Here he's right out of the blocks, and then he backed it completely off. And obviously the commentators don't know why. But a person that's become more involved, especially with, as you said, those 3 American Formula One rounds, and sometimes that time zone suits him. They bring Hinchcliffe across, obviously, from the IndyCar stuff and the Formula One. And he was his insight into IndyCar is obviously second to none to a certain extent. And he was fantastic in the way he was saying, like, what they'll do is they'll plan out the weekend that they did for the few hours, and they only want to do this, and this, and they'll be aiming a lot to get some draft off each other and working off each other and see how it is and hit all these points and completely. It's all development as well too, not just as far as testing goes for the Indy 500. So I do encourage anyone that's listening or watching, and especially the regulars that Brett brings up and says hi to, and we brings up the quotes from during the show. Have a look at a bit of the IndyCar test, Indy 500. It's quite insightful, and have a listen to Hinchcliffe, especially when he starts getting into the technical knowledge of some of those cars.
They're actually taking a bit of a break from Indy this weekend, from the Indy 500 preparations this weekend, because they actually have a championship round, the Alabama Grand Prix at Barber Motorsports Park. So that's so it's like do they still have the road course event as well?
I think they have the Indy Grand Prix.
Yeah. That's still, yes. So we've got two races in the month within the month of May before the Indy 500. That's
Indy
a little bit. Yeah, once upon a time, and not that long ago, it was blocked. The month of May was entirely blocked out with practice, qualifying, and then the Indy 500. Then they've stuck in the
it's about every fortnight
race on the road course, and now.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the difference. I mean, part of the reason that these things have been put on there is obviously television, and that's the problem that supercars have got at the moment. I mean, does anybody remember, there's no supercar news out there because the cars were basically, for a period of time they were stuck in New Zealand.
Supercar, what's a supercar?
They're only just back in the country.
Yeah, they've only just arrived back now, but in terms of, it seems like an eternity since we saw the last round, and I think that it's sort of got off the boil. I mean, like if to be honest, for the Tasmanian round, obviously it's not on free to air, and unless you're sort of one of us, like a hardcore motorsport fan, and you're reading sort of Speed Cafe and Auto Action and going online and looking at us and all sorts of things, there'd be absolutely no way that the average casual punter out there would have any idea at all that there's a supercar championship happening anywhere now, because it has no mainstream media attention at all. It's zero. It's invisible, and this is the problem when everyone says. People go, well, it's on KO and KO's fantastic, and it is, but it's still, the fact still is that for an awful lot of casual people, if it's not on free-to-air television, if it's not popping up, with regular ads during their footy and their rugby league and all the rest of it, they have no idea that it's even happening anymore, and it doesn't get any news. And this mainstream media doesn't cover it at all.
And this idea that this year there's more racing. Yes, there is on the weekends that it's on, but there's not more racing, more events. It's like if Formula One can go from country to country on a fortnightly basis, but supercars runs once a month, and it's just...
This is no blight on... This is no blight on another sport, but obviously I love my water sports and have been involved in those as well as the motorised and non-motorised over the years. But a huge congratulations to the two Aussies that won the Whip Curl as well down there at Bells Beach this on the weekend as well, though, too. Congrats, it's hotly contested all the way around the world. And the reason I bring that up, I'm not going to go into the stuff like Miss Wright and the jazz, that sort of stuff, but I can tell you all about the surfing over the last 2 weeks because I've been putting it on YouTube because it's been televised every time the waves have been good down there. And, of course, it's got strung out a little bit more. It's usually just during Easter and it's over and done with. But because, obviously, they want the best conditions for the riders to be able to enjoy it, I can tell you 10 times more about Bells Beach and the surfing and all that sort of stuff that's been going on than I can about supercars at the moment. And there you go, as Brett said. We get fed the information like for breakfast every morning.
Yeah, well, there's been nothing in terms of stuff that obviously you get some of the PR stuff, but it's like there's nothing from supercars, and this is the problem. I mean, And it's the problem. I really feel for people like Bruce Williams and also the guys at Super at Speed Cafe and all the rest of it. If your bread and butter, which it is, if your bread and butter is supercar racing, and that's what sells your magazines, and that's what draws people to your website and all that. And if there's zero news at all, I mean, sort of, there's nothing there to drag people in, and they're still talking about like the driving standards at Topor in a few weeks ago. That's old history now. Forget about that. I mean, like there's not.
Well, they've had one of the outlets had to drag up the time that Nissan, when the supercars and the Bathurst 12 Hours big clash weekend a long time ago, dragged up how they snuck the supercar in on the Thursday morning, got the pick of it next to the GTR when it was released, and they run it, and of course won the 12-hour in it, and then shipped it off to Sydney. Was part of the Cali racing. So I mean, that's a fantastic moment, and of course that was all fun and all that sort of thing, and got swept under the carpet 12 months later when obviously the supercars bought it out. But they're dragging up. That's the highlight of the news content. But you don't get Gary Rogers running around the tutu every day, or one of the drivers saying an off the cuff comment, or a team manager going off their dial. So I mean, there's just been they're all quietly in hibernation in their autumn leaves.
I think the thing is, like as Jared's saying, I mean, Seven do their football wrap on Saturday. Yep. They need something on Seven, even if it's on highlights. And they've got the highlights, but they're on at about 2:00 in the morning.
I was going to say one till 2 in the morning, because I've got them automatically taped on an automatic queue on my hard drive box over there.
And yet Seven, and particularly 7 Plus. Like this weekend, they will have the Australian National Drag Racing Championships coming from Sydney Motorsport Park. That'll be what I'm watching over the weekend mostly, because that'll be pretty much all Saturday and Sunday afternoon and into the evening. We've got a huge field of really good field of top fuel dragsters, funny cars, pro top door slammers. Top fuel bikes, they'll all be up there for the Nitro Champs up at Sydney Motorsport Park, up at the Sydney Dragway. So that's going to be a huge weekend. And as also further back, I know that Paul had put up there that we've got super bikes are back again. Got round 3 at Queensland Raceway this weekend. So SBS coverage as well as their live streaming as well. So that's a lot more high profile at the moment than the supercars are, because you can you can watch it on free to air television and you can watch it on YouTube, but if you want to watch the supercars, you've got to have KO or Foxtel, and if you don't, it doesn't exist.
Brett, for 30 years we've been complaining that the PR departments of every single V8 supercar team would have been better to work, would be better with the job in ASIO. ASIO looks like a sieve, but the V8 PR department never do. You couldn't get the PR department to tell you what they had for breakfast, no, they're in a torture chamber.
Oh, good call.
I think that's the problem, because you've got
hilarious.
As we've said over the years, talking about. If you look at all of the football shows, I mean, Channel 9's got all the football. They've got, what is it, Football Confidential or whatever it is.
No, Channel 7's got them all these days. No.
But 9 have still got them. I mean, 9 have got them. 7 have got them.
The Sunday
no one watches the Furnace or the Classified or anything like that. No one watches that these days. On Channel 7, I just finished watching the Agenda Setters before I jumped on with you guys tonight. I watched the Agenda Setters. I watched it last night. And I don't even like any of the 4 hosts. Oh, actually, Hodgie and Daisy are okay. But the other 3 are just
that's
so
why
annoying.
That's why I tend to watch the Channel 9 ones, because I think the hosts
But they've got the better content on Channel 7, so that's why you have to put up with the annoying host to be able to get the right content.
Channel 9 have got the advantage that we always had within Pit Lane, and that is, because they're not beholden to the AFL. Within reason, they can be more honest than Channel 7 can. Channel 7 have got to toe the party line.
They've been throwing the gauntlet, throwing the torch stick at a lot of players, and a lot of coaches in the last couple of weeks.
But they're not going to throw it at the AFL.
No.
Yeah, they've obviously put them on notice a little bit too, Channel 7, because they've told them how bad a job they're doing in certain areas, and I'm not sure if there's been any backlash from it, but it's certainly not favourable, some of the comments and the opinions they've been making about what the AFL is doing, especially with some of the general manager positions. I mean, Caroline Wilson, who, as I said, I'm not a big fan of a few of them, and she's one of them, but it's not because of her gender, it's just because of the opinions and who she's lampooned before. But she said, they've brought in, Jeff Walsh a couple of weeks ago. They've got rid of one guy because he's moved on to another position, so they get someone else in because someone's not receiving enough support, so they've created positions. So she absolutely threw down the gauntlet at him. But yeah, the Channel 7 but they've probably doubled the amount of programming on AFL and Aussie rules than they had last year, even though they've got the rights on it. They've got a wash up now. They've got another show. There's so many, the Armchair Experts. They've got so many shows to do with football now. Channel 7 have gone haywire. If they actually put the resources into the V8 supercars they put into football, we'd be saturated with just those two sports.
Well, you don't need to be saturated. You just need one program. And I mean, the point is, they're not interested because there simply isn't the market for it. It doesn't rate. So somebody's got to pay for it, and as we well know, I mean, as I've told the story before, we were Channel 7, both Channel 7 and Channel 10 wanted in Pit Lane. Years ago, on a number of occasions, Channel 7 approached us about 5 times over the course of the 28 years and said, hey, really like the concept of the show, really like what you guys are doing, would love to have you on Channel 7 if you bring $10,000 an episode with you. So so that was that, and that's the deal. It's pay for play, unless you're sort of rugby league or AFL footy, or to an extent cricket or tennis. If you want to get on, you've got to pay some dollars, and they're just not supercars. Aren't prepared to do that.
And the difference, the difference is football's every week. And like I said before, at the moment, Supercars only has an event about once a month. And then there's a long gap. And it's just...
Yeah, well, that's the point we were making in terms of if that's one of the reasons where we stopped doing in Pit Lane. I mean, there were lots of reasons, but one of them was it was just a nightmare to get a show together every week because it was like, what the hell are we going to talk about this week? And even when there was sort of supercar things happening, which, the vast majority of people wanted to watch, as I said, when we had the ratings, every time you had a supercar driver or somebody from supercars on the show, the ratings would more than double. On average, we were going from 9 to 12,000 viewers for a normal episode, up to 52,000 when a supercar driver was on. It was just bang, and we just couldn't get them on anymore. And it's not just us. It's not just the fact that it's just Channel 31. Bugger that. We're not going to bother with that. They don't go on to any meeting, because I've spoken to people at 3AW a few years ago about why they weren't covering, when they had Sports Today, why they weren't covering there. And the quote I got were, the biggest pack of arseholes we've ever had to deal with, we don't even bother.
Yeah. And SEN stopped bothering?
Yeah, well, SEN have dropped their coverage.
Yeah.
And not just the coverage of the races, because they were covering the races with Richard Crail and I think Aaron Noonan. They were doing the coverage of the race, but they had that Motorsport show on, which was sort of going up against us, and that's gone now as well. The one with Tony Shebeki, I think, and Steve Johnston and that's gone. That's out the window. So I don't think there's any Motorsport at all on SEN now. It's the Sports Entertainment Network, Well, there's one form of sports entertainment that isn't on their network, and that's motor racing.
Like I said about ASIO, and it's the same thing we've been saying for 30 years.
Yeah, well, that's
And
the
I don't
problem.
know
We've been
it's
saying
going
it
to
for
get any
30
better.
years. Nothing's changed. Peter
No.
Adderton says it all the time online. Lots of people, lots and lots of people keep saying it. But nothing ever changes because, the people who run the thing are incompetent buffoons.
It seems they're putting all of their media spend into social media rather than traditional media, and you really need to have both.
Yeah, well, one sort of drives the other. It's, yeah, I mean, sort of, Paul pointing out, like 3AW has Wide World of Sports, Sixers. That used to be Sports Today. It does, they're covering a lot. They are covering Formula One because of Oscar. I mean, like SEN. The other day I was out driving, and I think it was Gerard Whateley was talking with somebody. It wasn't a motorsport journalist. It was just a general. And once again, it was sort of like, this is pretty big deal, isn't it? This Oscar Piastri winning these Formula One races. It's pretty exciting. We need to keep an eye on this. And it's like, I don't know too much about it, but he's doing a great job.
Never made an effort, Gerard Whateley. So
yeah, so the driver's seat still has interviews and produce.
Yeah, but it's a podcast. It's not on SEN.
Yeah, it's a podcast. There's no shortage of podcasts. I mean, that's the problem at the moment. There's podcasts everywhere, and they're all, the drivers. You got Apex Hunters with Scotty Pye and Elliot Barber, and there's the driver's seat and a whole bunch of things that they're producing, but none of it is. And some of it is going on to KO, but none of it is going on to, once again, onto mainstream television. And, whatever people say about nobody watches mainstream television anymore. No, I'm sorry. The figures show absolutely differently. The figures are showing.
I don't want to go too far into it, but Channel 7 is saying it's free for all and free to air in AFL and all sorts of stuff, even though they've cut the Saturday night games out. They are showing overall more football, but it's all free for all on AFL, but there's nothing free about supercars on Channel 7, that's for sure, even though they own the rights to it.
Other than this is a podcast. I'll say it's not a podcast because we don't go onto any of the podcast services. We were for a little while. I was putting it up there, but it's not really.
We're strictly tubers, are we?
Yeah, I mean it's YouTube. I mean it's on Facebook as well, but it's more still broadcast in terms of that it's not. You can't go into your podcast catcher, into iTunes, all that, and download episodes or subscribe to it that way. As I said, we were doing it, but it was just a pain in the ass to basically do it every week. And the news, it's like our Channel 31 right now showing all of last year's editions of In Pit Lane on their online service. I mean, I always said to them, why bother, guys? I mean, people are going to watch. It's great if you want to go back and watch it. By all means, please do. But obviously the news is going to be a year out of date, whereas they couldn't get it because they couldn't get the turnover quick enough to get the show on. Now they're doing it now. They're spending more money on their online service, and I just got the announcement today that they're about to launch a new smart TV app for CTV Plus, so you'll be able to watch it on your smart TV in Apple TV, Chromecast, Samsung TV, Android TV, all of those sort of those things, Hubble, all of those things. You'll be able to get CTV Plus around Australia then, where you can watch every Friday night and on demand the Tune Up, our weekly music program, which has got 5 shows to go, I think, on air. I'm losing count now, but
8 in total, was it? Plus the pilot. So isn't 4 down already?
Show 5. We're shooting show 5 tomorrow.
We're shooting show 5 tomorrow. So I think we're into the 4th show. Because we had the week off for Easter, it's sort of caught up a bit now, so we're only a week ahead. we're only a week ahead now, so it means our turnover is like, and basically at the end of this program, I've got to actually write the running sheet for tomorrow's programs. If our band tomorrow has actually got back to me after several requests to get the songs they're playing and the running times of the song, they still haven't sent them to me yet. So I can't sort of do running sheets until I find out how long the bloody songs will be, and then I've got to find out something to fill in the gap in the middle too. So I've got to go back into the In-Pit Lane archives and find that. And as I said, I lost a lot of stuff when there's SD. Probably 18 months worth of material is gone, unfortunately. And it's gone forever. So that's it's a shame.
What happened?
Just the SSD died, and I can't afford to back up. I mean, to back it up, I'd need like at least a 12 terabyte NAS or something similar to back the thing up, and that's around $700-800, and I just can't afford justifies spending that sort of money on it. So unfortunately, it's gone. It's gone into the ether. It will never be seen again. Goodbye to those episodes. They are, of course, online on CTV and some of them on YouTube. So anyway, before we go, anything that anybody wants to say? Because I've just realised we have been yakking for an hour now. So let's get out of here.
Well, if you enjoyed the historics of Paul Ricard last weekend, they're on again this weekend at Donington in the UK. So there'll be, I don't know if that's being streamed anywhere, but certainly the Donington Historic Meet always is pretty well supported. Last weekend we had the round 2 of the Nürburgring Langstrecke series, and it was I'm having a blank now. I had it in my head that it was BMW that got it for the race win. And now I'm doubting myself.
We also had DTM as well. So DTM was there. Jordan Pepper has the lead in by sheer consistency in the Lamborghini. He just basically leads the series now. But the second race, the Mansai Porsche with, and I forget his name, a Turkish driver, first Turkish driver.
Oh yeah, Anshan Guven, who's a bit of a mate of who co-drove with Matt Campbell to win the Bathurst 12-hour 2 years ago.
That's right, yeah.
And he's one of the coming men of the Porsche squad.
And speaking of Australians in Porsche, congratulations to our mate Tom Sargent, who has been signed up as a junior development driver for Porsche North America, and he's been racing a few things in the IMSA North American Sports Car Championship, and he'll be doing more of that with the team over the next year or so. So he's looks like the next Australian that's got a bit of a hand up in that.
European Le Mans is this weekend at Paul Ricard, so his
that's
the 4 hours of Le Castellet.
Yes, and then the week after we got Spa. We got the 6 hours of Spa, the last race before the big one, the greatest race of all, the Le Mans 24-hour, the Grand Prix de l'Endurance.
All three of the big European 24 hours on consecutive weekends.
It's insane. It's just
Nürburgring and Spa and Le Mans all on
consecutive last weekend was really good to watch as well too for a bit of time as well.
It was
one of the Falcon Porsches who got the win.
Right.
Yeah, well, and they had some Falcon. I think a Beamer Falcon as well too was running. That's right.
Okay, well, I think we better call that quits, guys, because it is it's getting on, and I've got work to do.
And
the BMW thing that was in my head was that BMW won the Silverstone 500 for GT3s at
I did watch a bit of that too. Yeah, I did watch a bit of. There's so much on, it's crazy. And this is the problem. I mean, you can't watch everything. Yeah,
thank you, YouTube.
Thank you, YouTube.
So much free stuff on.
Yes. So if you're watching on Facebook, do turn over. And remember, please like and subscribe. If you haven't done so already, it does make a huge difference. The more people who give us a thumbs up, and the more people who make comments on YouTube and all the rest of it, it certainly helps the algorithm. And people say, "Oh, people are commenting, people are interacting. They love interaction." I've been told this by the people who know direct from YouTube is they love interaction. It's the thing that they, and so if you watch every week or if you watch regularly and you interact and you give us a thumbs up, and if you like and subscribe, then they're more likely to offer that up to other people. And that's really the only way that YouTube channels grow. I mean, you need basically once YouTube start recommending you, that's when things start to really take off. So please do that if you want to support the program at all in any and the stuff we're trying to do within Pit Lane. As I said, we haven't done as much as we wanted to do for a whole bunch of personal reasons. I won't go into any more of that. I've had enough of that over the last few weeks. But hopefully at least in the next few weeks we might be able to get out and do some more stuff, but you never know. But anyway, that's all we got time for. Let's call it quits, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We'll see you next week, same time, same bat channel, here on Full Course Yellow. Until then, have a great weekend of motorsport, and we'll catch you later. Goodbye,
And
everybody.
vote. Don't forget to vote.
Early.